I'm here today with Heather Motley, the math specialist at North Grove, and wanted to give her some time to just talk to you a little bit as special ed teachers about how she's had some success in working with the Bridges intervention tool already this year.
So Lisa's given you a little overview of what's within the Bridges Intervention Program, and I want to show you a little bit more about how to navigate each of the volumes. So the volumes I have printed out into binders themselves. So this first volume is counting an early place value, and within this first volume you're going to see the modules, and within each module there are sessions. So each module has about 5 sessions, and that comes with a progress monitoring as that final session each time. Each of those sessions is going to be structured with the same components also. They're going to have a warm-up, maybe a couple of warm-ups, activities, and then some practice pages that you can print for that written practice. What I've really discovered as I've begun to utilize this is that it has really wonderful flexibility. So you'll start by planning which volume and module and session best meets the needs of your students. It might not even be starting at the beginning of a volume. It might not be starting at the beginning of a module even. It might be a very specific session within there that you're wanting to target with a student. And then as you explore that session, you may even be picking and choosing warm-ups and activities based on your students' needs. So with my 20-minute groups, I might choose 1 or 2 warm-ups based on, again, what I feel and what I've communicated with teachers is meeting the needs of those students, and then move into an activity or a printed practice page. Students may even spend more than 1 day in each of these sessions depending on their needs, and you could be flexible within that. So maybe the first time they're going to do warm-up 1 and activity 1, and the second time through that session they're going to do warm-up 2 and practice page. And then they might not even move into that second session unless that's something that you need. So really being truly flexible with the process and flexible with this tool as it was built to be. It has a wonderful connection to the Bridges curriculum with the classrooms. So one of the ways that I have worked with teachers to determine where to begin with a student or a group is through their checklists, number 1, and number 2 is their screeners. So their screeners give you some specific information about where you can support a student on a specific skill that they have identified within their screeners.
And then Heather, in terms of like making adjustments, when you're working with a group of students, I heard you speak to how flexible you're able to be. When you make decisions, let's say for example, within that volume right now, it looks like you're looking at, what volume is that?
Volume 1, which is counting an early place value.
Okay, and I come to you as a kindergarten teacher, and you and I have talked that I have a small group of students that are really struggling with their counting to 20 even. When you talk to a classroom teacher, or when you see that you have a core group of students that's really struggling, tell us a little bit about how you work from that feedback, because sometimes it's not even giving a screener, it's not giving an assessment, it's just the teacher. I think it's really probably the best way to come to know what students need is through the voice of teachers that are interacting with them every single day. Tell us a little bit about then what that next step looks like for you.
So that's really the route that I have been utilizing this all year, is that feedback from teachers. So I would then go right into these units or these modules, and I would see that there's one called numbers to 20. So then I would start to dive into those and be, like I said, extremely flexible. So I might be even picking warm-ups and activities from multiple sessions based on exactly what skills that group of student truly needs, and I'll continue to spiral those in and build kind of a sequence of routines and warm-ups that are supporting those students where they are at with the skills that they need.
And so now in our district, we know we have our essential standards and we have our learning targets that we're really adhering to at every grade level. We also have those essential standard resources, that digital document, which actually then became the crates of all these resources. It sounds like this Bridges intervention tool is yet another resource to support you in providing children with additional exposures to concepts that they're struggling with. And yeah.
It truly has just added to my repertoire of resources and activities and supplies and games that I can pull from and draw from. And I still do utilize those resources as well. Sometimes one 20-minute session will be a combination from the Bridges intervention and maybe a game I pulled from our digital essential resources. And really, the flexibility is truly amazing within here.
I love that you say 20 minutes because I know that the Bridges intervention tool actually recommends 30 minutes, and I think it's important to know that you too have the flexibility that it may not always be 30 minutes and that a lot of really great work can happen in 20 minutes. I also noticed that within each module, and you referred to this, within each module there's 5 sessions. And those 5 sessions, the first 4 are always like the warm-up, the game and activities that you spoke about, the practice pages. But the 5th session is always an assessment. Are you finding that you're always giving that assessment? And if not, what are you doing instead of that?
I'm not always using that progress monitoring piece. I do sometimes, and I have tried them out. I do love the individual interview piece. I feel like it gives me a lot of meaningful feedback, but I am focused more on student checklists and those specific essentials and learning targets. And I might say, all right, within this scoring guide, maybe a student was able to count forward by ones to a certain number, and they were able to, in our language, have a 3 on that skill, but maybe one of these other ones, answering how many with a scattered configuration on a domino, so more of that one-to-one correspondence, was not something they had yet. I'm going to then focus on this skill and pull activities and warm-ups that focus on that skill, and I might not do activities and warm-ups on skills that they have mastered.
I love that. And when I shared with you my kindergarten example of students that were struggling with, numbers to 20, you right away went into the table of contents within that volume, and you said, oh, it's that learning targets right here. And that's not coincidental. I mean, one of the reasons why we chose to go with Bridges is because of its alignment to our essential standards and learning targets. And so within that table of contents, anything related to early counting, place value, in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade, this would be the volume then that I would reference.
Yes, and then if I'm having a meeting with a team of teachers or we're in WIN planning and they've identified number story work as a skill they want to focus on, I would choose a completely different module, and I would pull in volume number 4 here, which is addition and subtraction in problem situations, which again begins at the earliest grades for addition and subtraction problem situations and builds up with all the way up to multi-step number stories. In this, it does not and would not include multiplication and division number stories. That would be a whole separate volume.
One of the things that we talked about in our overview is that these volumes are not meant to be followed in any sort of sequence. You're really working as a specialist to be in alignment with the tier 1 instruction in the classroom and supporting the feedback that you're getting from teachers as to which of these 9 volumes you're going to work in and for what purpose.
Yeah, and so because of that, I truly find myself bouncing around between the volumes, even within a specific grade level, in a specific classroom, because we're working on a variety of different skills.
I think one of the things that I'm walking away from our conversation is just the flexibility with which you are working in Bridges Intervention and how you're really getting the feedback from classroom teachers about what it is that they're seeing in the trenches in terms of how best to navigate these resources.
Yes.
And that although a module has 5 different sessions, it may be true that students don't need all 5 sessions. So you're not just beating a dead horse, you're really being responsive within each one of those sessions to make decisions about where to move next with the child or small group.
Yeah, and we know that, you know, we might see a kindergartner who is working on the skill of counting to 100 all year long. And we get to have that child and work with that child all year long. So I might be coming back to specific warm-ups and activities that connect to that skill and spiraling it in throughout the entire year. But that doesn't mean I'm not gonna start working in some other volumes with that student as well and working on other skills.
One things I love too, I know you talked about it, like enhancing your repertoire of tricks. One of the examples I think of is that pendulum counting. I remember how excited you were when you first learned that through the Bridges Intervention tool. And I found you doing that and using that particular strategy and approach in multiple groups with so many different students and so many different needs because you just loved it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely enhanced my work in that I pull from different warm-ups and activities that I've learned through utilizing the program without necessarily even needing to go into the specific binders anymore, because I can pull them back up and kind of structure my own sequence of activities based on the targeted skills the students need.
Heather, at this point, do you find yourself still going into the binders? I know that we didn't purchase it, so you actually printed those off the Bridges Educator site.
Yes.
Are you still using them?
You know, I find myself more and more often just going right off of their website and pulling in specific sessions and lessons that I need and just printing off one session or one module, or picking and pulling one page that describes an activity, but I might be pulling in a different activity from a different one. And that again lends itself to my flexibility and allows me to be more flexible and a little bit more mobile without carrying my binders around. I'm just bringing exactly what I need since I'm pushing into the classroom throughout the day.
And I think that's important to note too, because I wouldn't want anyone to leave here feeling like, oh my gosh, I need to get this all copied, I need to get this. Really, you can start using it tomorrow, just using the Bridges Educator site and going in there and exploring what they have to offer and printing off a lesson or two.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for your time, Heather.
You're welcome. Thank you.